Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be talking about Cher.
Sure.
So we're going to get into some of the controversies of her life.
Yes.
And we'll also talk about,
Some of the triumphs.
yeah, some of the triumphs. But yeah, focusing on kind of the difficult things that she's had to go through.
Mm-hmm.
So to start off, one thing that really struck me was her childhood.
Yeah.
She really went through a lot.
She really did. I mean, can you imagine being raised by a single mom who's married 7 times?
Oh, gosh.
Like, that in and of itself is just wild.
Yeah, and then you add on to that, like, poverty.
Yeah. Experiencing poverty and even spending time in an orphanage.
It's crazy.
I mean, it really puts things into perspective.
Yeah, when you think about the Cher that we know now.
Right? Like the glamorous icon.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine her.
Coming from such humble beginnings.
Yes, it's difficult beginnings, yeah.
And to think that all of that shaped her into the incredible force that she is today, it's quite amazing.
It really is. So, obviously we have to talk about Sonny Bono.
Of course, the Sonny and Cher dynamic is a huge part of her story.
It's like inseparable. Yeah.
It's like you can't really talk about Cher without talking about Sonny.
Right, and their relationship was so complicated.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, from what I read, it wasn't like love at first sight or anything like that.
She was 16.
Yeah, she was so young when they met, and Sonny was actually 11 years older than her.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was that big of an age gap.
Yeah, it was significant. And what's interesting is that Sonny actually said he didn't even find Cher attractive at first.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so strange.
He did, yeah.
To think about them as this, like, power couple?
I know, right? And their music was so iconic.
I gotcha, babe. Come on.
Exactly. It's a classic, but behind the scenes, things were far from perfect.
Yeah, there were a lot of rumors about infidelity, even while they were still together.
Oh, yeah. And they weren't just rumors. There were confirmed affairs on both sides.
Really?
Yeah, Sonny had multiple affairs.
Oh, Cap.
And Cher also had her own relationships while they were married, including one with David Geffen.
That's pretty wild. Imagine trying to maintain this image of the happy couple.
While you're both seeing other people.
Yeah, and then you have to go on stage and perform together.
It must have been incredibly stressful and emotionally draining.
And on top of all that, you have to think about the power dynamics in their relationship.
Yeah, Sonny definitely seemed to have a lot of control.
Yeah, both personally and professionally, Cher has talked about feeling trapped in their marriage.
And she even went so far as to describe it as involuntary servitude during their divorce proceedings.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really strong statement.
It is, and it speaks volumes about how she felt treated within their marriage and their business partnership.
So what does she mean by involuntary servitude?
Well, essentially, she felt like she was being forced to work against her will.
Oh, wow.
She felt Sonny was taking advantage of her both creatively and financially.
So it wasn't just a personal betrayal, but a professional one, too.
Yeah. Exactly. She was fighting for her autonomy and her financial independence.
Which must have been so hard, especially during that era.
Absolutely. It was a time when women, especially in the entertainment industry, had to fight even harder for recognition and equal footing.
And it's interesting because this theme of fighting for independence kind of pops up throughout her whole life.
It does. It's like a recurring motif in her story.
Like even after her divorce, Sonny made some pretty harsh comments.
Oh, yeah. He suggested that America would hate her and she would never work again without him.
What?
Yeah, it's pretty clear he didn't have much faith in her ability to stand on her own 2 feet.
So, talk about underestimating someone.
Talk about underestimating someone, because she went on to have this incredibly successful solo career.
Yeah, she totally proved him wrong.
She conquered television with her own variety show, and she even won an Oscar for Moonstruck.
Like, talk about resilience.
It's remarkable. The woman is unstoppable.
So from there, she goes on to have this crazy successful career, but then there's also her experience as a mother.
Yeah, her relationship with her 2 kids, Chaz and Elijah Blue, has been complicated, to say the least.
Balancing motherhood with a demanding career is never easy.
And then you add in the fame and the public scrutiny, and it just amplifies everything.
Yeah, let's talk about Chaz first. His journey transitioning was very public.
It was, and it must have been a whirlwind for both of them.
How did Cher handle that?
Well, it's interesting because initially she struggled with it.
Really?
Yeah, she admitted that it was hard for her to fully grasp and accept at first.
That makes sense. It's a big change.
It is, but over time she really evolved and became one of the most vocal advocates for transgender rights.
Good to her.
She really stepped up and supported Chaz every step of the way.
That's amazing.
And her public embrace of Chaz's transition really helped to shift public perception and understanding of trans issues.
Absolutely. It showed a lot of people that it's okay to be different and to support your loved ones, no matter what.
Elijah Blue, on the other hand, that relationship has been a little more tumultuous.
Yeah, there's been estrangement, disagreements, even legal battles.
It's been tough, and Elijah has been pretty vocal about feeling like he grew up in the shadow of his mother's fame.
Oh,
He talked about being sent to boarding school at a young age and feeling like he was being shunned.
that's going to be hard.
It is, and it
Well,
seems like those early experiences really impacted their relationship.
so like a lack of attention or unconditional love.
Yeah, it sounds like he felt neglected, and that feeling was probably compounded by his struggles with addiction
Yeah.
and his relationship with his father, Greg Allman, who also battled substance abuse issues.
It's a whole lot of family dynamics at play.
Right, and then you add in the media spotlight, and it just creates this pressure cooker environment.
Yeah. Can't be easy to deal with all of that.
No, not at all. And that brings us to the recent controversy that's been making headlines.
Yeah, the conservatorship battle between Cher and Elijah.
This is the big one.
It's huge.
And it's garnered so much attention, especially in light of the hashtag Free Britney movement.
Right? People are really starting to pay attention to the potential for abuse within the conservatorship system.
Yeah, it's a sensitive topic, and this case really highlights the complexities of it all.
So what exactly led to this legal showdown?
Well, Cher filed for conservatorship over Elijah in late 2023.
He was 47 at the time.
Yeah, and she claimed that he was struggling with drug use and couldn't manage his own affairs.
Oh, wow.
But Elijah vehemently opposed the conservatorship.
Of course.
He insisted he was sober and perfectly capable of making his own decisions.
So it basically boils down to a disagreement about his ability to care for himself.
Yeah, and a power struggle over who has the final say in his life.
A lot at stake.
There is. And to make things even more complicated, Elijah's wife, Mary Angela, got involved.
Oh, boy.
She publicly accused Cher of trying to control Elijah's inheritance from his father, Greg Allman.
It turned into a full-blown family feud.
Yeah, with accusations flying back and forth.
It's messy.
It is, and it really exposes the complexities of family relationships, especially when you add money and control into the mix.
And the legal system is kind of caught in the middle.
Right, because it's designed to protect vulnerable individuals.
But it can also be manipulated and used for control.
Exactly. It's a very nuanced and often controversial area of the law.
So much to think about here.
I know, right? And we've only just begun to scratch the surface of Cher's life and the controversies that surround her.
We still have a lot more to unpack: her romantic relationships, her fashion choices, or political activism.
And of course, her incredible talent and resilience.
Yeah, she really is an icon.
She's a legend.
One thing's for sure, her life is anything but boring.
That's for sure. And the drama is far from over.
When we come back, we'll delve deeper into some of these other controversies.
The impact they've had on her career and personal life, and what they reveal about the changing landscape of fame, family, and societal expectations. Before we got into all the family stuff, we were talking about how Cher kind of took control after her divorce from Sonny.
Yeah, she really had to prove herself, didn't she?
Oh, yeah. A lot of people doubted her.
They thought she couldn't make it on her own.
Right. Like, without Sonny, she was nothing.
But she showed them.
She definitely did. She wasn't afraid to take risks.
Like going into television?
Hosting her own variety show.
That was a bold move.
It was, and it really paid off. The Cher show was a massive hit.
And those costumes.
Oh my gosh, those Bob Mackie creations.
Iconic.
Totally. She used fashion as a way to express herself,
And to challenge those old-fashioned ideas about what women should be like.
Exactly. She was like, I'm not going to conform to your expectations.
She embraced her sexuality, and she wasn't afraid to be provocative.
Especially during a time when women were expected to be more, ladylike.
She was definitely pushing boundaries.
And she wasn't just bold with her fashion.
Her music, too.
Oh, yeah. She experimented with so many genres: rock, pop, disco, even dance music later on.
Never sticking to just one thing.
Always evolving, reinventing herself.
It's pretty amazing how she's managed to stay relevant for so long.
I think it's that willingness to change, never becoming predictable.
Like she's always one step ahead.
Exactly. And it's interesting how that same kind of fearlessness shows up in her love life, too.
Oh, yeah. She's never been shy about her relationships.
And she's dated some pretty high-profile guys.
Warren Beatty, Tom Cruise. The list goes on.
She's always been drawn to those strong personalities.
And those passionate connections.
So we all know those can be pretty intense.
And sometimes messy.
For sure, but I think that's part of what makes her so relatable.
Yeah, she's not afraid to be honest about her experiences.
The good and the bad.
She owns her choices and her mistakes.
And that's refreshing.
Yeah.
Especially for women who are often expected to be perfect.
She's definitely called out those double standards in the entertainment industry.
Never back down from a fight.
like her relationship with David Geffen.
That was pretty explosive.
So what happened there?
Well, Geffen was this super powerful record executive, and their relationship was kind of a power struggle, you know?
The clash of the titans.
Yeah, and after they broke up, Cher claimed he tried to sabotage her career.
Really?
Yeah, she accused him of being controlling and manipulative.
So what did she do?
She sued him, of course.
For breach of contract.
And she won.
Good for her.
She wasn't going to let him get away with it.
It's like that same pattern again, fighting for what she believes in.
Exactly, standing up for herself.
Whether it's in her career or her personal life.
She's a fighter.
And you can't talk about Cher without mentioning her impact on the LGBT community.
Oh, absolutely. She's been an ally for decades.
Long before it was trendy or widely accepted.
From being a gay icon to supporting Chaz's transition.
She's used her platform to promote acceptance and understanding.
And she's done it with so much heart, you know?
It's genuine.
Totally. She's not just talking the talk, she's walking the walk.
And she's been especially outspoken about trans rights.
Speaking out against discrimination.
Putting herself out there for a community that's often been marginalized.
It's really admirable.
I mean, when you look at all of this, it's like everything in her life is connected.
All these threads weaving together.
Creating this tapestry of a woman who lives life on her own terms.
I love that analogy, the tapestry of Cher.
And she never apologizes for who she is.
Never.
A true icon.
A force of nature.
And she's still going strong, even as she gets older.
It's like age is just a number for her.
She shows us that it's never too late to reinvent yourself, to fight for what you believe in.
To live authentically.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive.
Her career, her relationships, her activism.
But there's one more layer of controversy that we need to unpack.
Oh yeah, the big one.
The conservatorship battle with Elijah Blue.
It's been all over the headlines.
And it really brings up some tough questions about family and control.
Especially when you factor in fame and fortune.
It's captivated the public.
Because it seems to contradict Cher's previous stance on conservatorship.
She was a vocal critic of Britney Spears' conservatorship.
Calling for reform and everything.
And now she's seeking a similar arrangement for her own son.
It's definitely a twist.
Makes you wonder about her motivations.
Right. Is it really about concern for Elijah, or is it about control?
And the legal system gets caught in the middle again.
Trying to balance protecting vulnerable individuals with respecting their autonomy.
It's a tricky situation.
Especially with all the media attention.
Every move Cher makes is scrutinized.
It's hard to separate the personal from the public in this case.
And it raises questions about whether she's applying a different standard to her own son.
Because of her personal feelings.
It's easy to judge from the outside looking in.
But when it's your own family member, it's different.
And addiction complicates everything.
Oh, absolutely. It affects everyone involved.
And Elijah has talked about feeling neglected by Cher.
Growing up in her shadow.
So there's that layer of resentment, too.
It's heartbreaking in a way.
You have a mother who loves her son.
And a son who's struggling.
But they've ended up on opposite sides of this legal battle.
Each fighting for what they believe is right.
It's a reminder that even with love, families can be torn apart.
By addiction, by miscommunication, by different ideas of what's best.
As we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
It's clear that Cher's story is far from simple.
it's full of contradictions.
She's an advocate for individuality, but struggles with it in her own family.
A champions for the underdog, but uses the legal system against her son,
She's a survivor, a fighter, but also a human being.
dealing with real-life issues.
And that's what makes her story so fascinating.
It reflects our own struggles
Our own complexities.
and our understanding of family in a world that's constantly changing.
When we come back, we'll get into the specifics of the conservatorship case.
We'll examine both sides of the story.
And explore the broader implications of this very public and very personal battle.
Okay, so we're back and ready to dive into this conservatorship case.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy stuff.
It is. So, we talked about Cher filing for conservatorship over Elijah back in late 2023.
By citing concerns about his well-being and finances.
But what were some of the specific arguments from her legal team?
Well, they basically painted a picture of Elijah as being really vulnerable.
Vulnerable, how?
Well, because of his past with addiction, they argued that he was susceptible to exploitation.
Okay, so like people taking advantage of it.
Exactly. And they said he wasn't able to make sound decisions about his own life.
Oh, wow.
You know, his well-being, his finances.
They were saying he needed protection.
Yeah, protection from himself and from others who might try to use him.
But Elijah and his wife, Mary Angela, they had a very different story.
Oh, yeah, they fired back pretty hard.
What did they say?
Well, they claimed that Cher was totally exaggerating things.
Really?
Yeah, they said Elijah was sober and working on his recovery,
Yeah.
and they insisted he was capable of managing his own life.
So they were basically saying Cher was overstepping.
Totally, and they even accused her of having ulterior motives.
Like what?
Well, they said she was actually trying to gain control of Elijah's inheritance.
Oh, wow, from his father, Greg Allman.
Yeah, it got pretty ugly.
So it became this back and forth battle of accusations.
Yeah, with each side claiming the other was lying and manipulating the situation.
And it really brought up these questions about power dynamics in conservatorships.
Absolutely, because you've got a parent who thinks they know what's best,
Right.
but then you have an adult child who wants to make their own choices.
And the legal system is stuck in the middle
Trying to figure out where to draw the line.
between protecting someone
Hmm.
and respecting their autonomy,
It's a really tough balance,
especially when you add in Cher's celebrity status.
right? Everything she does is under a microscope.
And it makes it hard to know what's genuine concern and what might be.
Manipulation or a desire for control.
And, she was so against Britney Spears' conservatorship.
She was really outspoken about it.
But now she's doing something similar with her own son.
It's definitely ironic.
Makes you wonder if she's applying a different standard because it's her family.
It's hard to say, but it's a valid
I
question.
mean, it's easy to judge from the outside. But family situations can be so complicated.
Especially when addiction is involved.
It creates so much tension and conflicting emotions.
And it can be hard to see clearly when you're in the middle of it.
And we have to remember that Elijah has his own perspective,
Oh, absolutely. He's talked about feeling neglected by Cher.
growing up in her shadow.
Yeah, and that probably contributed to a lack of trust between them.
Making this whole situation even messier.
Yeah. It's really sad when you think about it.
You have a mother who loves her son,
And a son who's struggling.
but they're at odds with each other,
It's a reminder that family relationships can be incredibly challenging.
even with the best intentions.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Cher's life,
With all the controversies and the complexities.
it's clear that she's a woman of contradictions.
Definitely.
She fights for individuality, but struggles with it in her own family.
She's a champion for the underdog, but uses the legal system against her son.
She's a survivor,
A fighter,
but also a human being.
dealing with real-life struggles.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes her story so relatable.
We see ourselves in her triumphs and her mistakes.
And her journey reminds us that family relationships are never easy.
Fame and fortune don't make them any simpler.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the life of Cher.
We'll see you next time for another fascinating look into the lives of the icons who shape our world.